What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Young Legends podcast, where we teach you the cheat codes to the game of life. I'm your host, Caption, aka Caption Red, and I hope you're doing great wherever you are. And I'm super excited to bring you this interview, which is my conversation with personal finance guru and teacher, Yanely Espinal, aka Miss Be Helpful. Yanely is a YouTuber and podcaster focusing on helping teach financial literacy to young people. She has been featured on various national media outlets, including Forbes and USA Today. She also serves as the Director of Educational Outreach at Next Gen Personal Finance, a nonprofit that teaches kids financial literacy, and is a member of CNBC's Financial Wellness Advisory Council. Yanely, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. How is your day going?
Thank you for having me. Today's been good. It's a Monday, so it's been a long work day, but it's been a good day overall.
Fantastic. Well, I found you through some mutual friends of ours that we both feel really positive vibes towards, Julian and Kirsten from Rich and Regular. And
Yes.
And when I found you, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have her on the podcast. She is awesome. The energy she's bringing, the information she's bringing, everything about her, I'm digging. So yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Happy to be here.
Indeed. So the way I like to start my podcast is I like to start with a fun or interesting, funny story. Just a story from your life that, you like to tell, maybe people like to hear, and maybe both, who knows? So,
Yeah. I have a kind of a funny story. It's a little embarrassing though. So I started dating my boyfriend now, so who's been my partner for 9 years, when I was in my early 20s. And a couple years into us dating, he would like complain about the fact that like a lot of the time that I had outside of work, I would just like waste my time. Like I'd be watching like Scandal, or I'd be watching like stuff on HBO or whatever, Netflix, and listening to music, hanging out with my friends. And he's like, do you have any passions outside of like what you do for your paycheck? And I was like, I mean, I just like to just chill, like I didn't. And at the time I didn't know. I had just graduated college. I was just living my life. I was just not really thinking beyond my early 20s. And he is a very ambitious person. So he's like constantly like doing all these different things. He was like doing P90X. He was teaching himself how to code. He's always doing all these things. And I'd be like, that's cool. Do you, bro? But I just like to chill. And so after a couple years, he broke up with me. And I was kind of heartbroken, but at the same time, I knew that like, when one person in a relationship is really ambitious and the other person is not, like that, there's a mismatch. And it's not that I wasn't ambitious, just at that time I wasn't really motivated by anything. I was at a job that I kind of felt like, it's not like my dream job, and I didn't really know how to make moves in my life. My credit card debt was like eating me up. I was kind of financially a mess, and I didn't really know how to take a leap. And so when he broke up with me, I didn't know what to do with all my free time. And I was scrolling on Facebook, and I saw that one of my good friends from college had started her own business, which was like a fitness brand. And so I started going to classes, and it's like the funniest thing, because it's a lot of people think it's like Zumba, but it's like actually like Zumba, but like on steroids. So you walk into this like fitness studio, there's a DJ, it's in the basement. So it's a dark basement party pretty much, with a live DJ. And there's a strobe light show. The music is really loud, like if you're in the club, and everybody is jumping up and down, dancing, twerking, like literally just like booty shaking, popping, like just crazy. Like you feel like you're at a dance party.
Sure.
And you're actually following the guidance of the instructor who's doing all these cardio dance moves to get you to work up a sweat in an hour. But the entire time you're jumping up and down. And I loved that workout so much. I was like, oh my goodness, this is where I'm supposed to be every single day after work. Like, these are my people. I love the energy here. I'm getting a good workout. And so I started going religiously. Every day I would go. I'd wake up at like 5 a.m. so I could get there in time before I could do my workout before going to class. And then I started posting on my social media. And lo and behold, I got a message from my boyfriend again being like, hey, so all of a sudden you're working out and like working at this, because I was actually working at the studio too. I would Like I was checking people in and, rolling up towels and doing all the things at the studio to help out. And I was doing that in exchange for free classes. So I found my passion, which was like dance, cardio, workout, and like, really kind of thinking about business, because as an entrepreneur, my friend really inspired me to find my own passion and my own kind of side hustle. And that year I launched Miss Be Helpful on YouTube. And so long story short, being broken up with was probably one of the best things that happened, because it really pushed me to find out what is it that I want to do with my time and my life, and how do I want to make an impact. And then I got my boyfriend back, and we're still together. So I'm glad that worked out that way.
Absolutely. And finding someone who makes you better is so important in life, in all relationships, but particularly, your significant other, your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatnot. So
yeah, and I gotta say, I don't think it's healthy to be with somebody who's constantly trying to change you. And so I appreciate that about him, that he was like, I'm not gonna tell you to change. I'm not gonna tell you to be a different person, or to make goals that you don't have for yourself, that you don't want to have for yourself. Like, he was just like, honestly, like, I just don't see us working. And then I was like, you know what? If I want to get him back, like, I know what I need to do. And if I didn't want to do that, then I wouldn't have done it. But I think it was the right way for him to approach the relationship, was to just leave rather than trying to force me to change. And he never ever did that. So I think he inspired me to change, but he never forced me to change. And I do think if you're in a relationship and someone's trying to force change on you, that's not healthy. If you want to change, if you genuinely want to do something different, to, whether that's, you feel like it's just to be different or to be better, do it because you want to, not because you're trying to do it for somebody else to impress them, or to, in my case, I was trying to win him back, but I actually just wanted to do it for myself too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that all sounds like, that was, y'all both did everything right as far as that goes. So
thank you.
Indeed. All right. So you have a very interesting story of getting to where you are today. I think the part about getting in financial trouble isn't absolutely not unique, but it is still a very interesting story. And you actually, unlike most people who go through what you went through, decide to be very proactive and do something about it. So do you mind just sharing your story about how you got to where you are right now?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll start with where I grew up. I grew up in New York City. My parents actually immigrated from Dominican Republic to Brooklyn, New York. They first lived in Manhattan for a long time, back when it was like, really just a community of immigrants. And when they moved to Brooklyn, it was because they really kind of wanted to not be like in tenement housing. They wanted to kind of have a little bit more space, and they had opportunity to work with my uncle to have a house for all of our cousins, my uncle, my parents, and everybody to share. So I grew up in kind of like this, 2-story house, but like everybody was in there all the time, sharing rooms, sharing bathrooms, sharing beds, sharing everything, toys. And it was definitely like really rowdy and like loud and like vibrant in terms of the environment. But one of the things that I felt like I was always very different from like all my friends and my siblings and everything, because I was extremely nerdy, and like I really loved to read. And, when I was in high school, over the summer, I'd be like super bored. Everybody else would run outside and like play, hang out, go do whatever they were doing. And I would get those Barron's Regents exam prep books, and I would just do like algebra problems and like trigonometry problems, like for fun. So I was definitely, on the nerdy side, but I had a big personality. So I wasn't like the kind of nerd who was like socially awkward. I was more that kind of nerd that was just like, hey, I just happen to be like really, good at academics, right? But like I'm, very much a social butterfly. So when I got to high school, I think being a social butterfly helped me to still make friends and like fit in and feel like I belonged. But I definitely was hyper aware of the fact that I was low income, and that my family definitely was not able to get me the things that everybody else got. Like I never got the new Jordans when they dropped. I never got name brand coats or name brand book bags or like any of that kind of stuff. And when I got to college, I really wanted to not feel like that anymore. For like the first time, I was on my own. My parents weren't there to tell me, yes, you can have this. No, you can't have that. You have to be home at this time. So I was like, oh, I'm Miss Independent. I'm doing things on my own. And so I went and I got a credit card at Bank of America with one of the highest interest rates in the country, because when you're a student and you get a student credit card, you're a really big risk to the bank and to the lenders, because you don't have any credit history, you don't have any record of, paying bills or doing anything, so they don't know if you're going to pay them back on time, or what your behavior is going to be with your money. So they give you a really high interest rate in order to make up for the fact that they're taking a risk lending you money in the first place. Now, I, of course, at that time, I didn't understand any of this, but I started abusing the credit card, not using the credit card. Using the credit card would have been, buying things that I needed or things that I wanted here and there, and then always paying it back as much as I could. But I was abusing it. I was maxing out the credit card and then just sending the minimum payment every month just to kind of, keep my bills, quote unquote, paid. But I was racking up so much debt and so much interest in interest fees that I was in over my head. By the time I graduated, I had $20,000 of credit card debt. And I was one of those lucky kids who the tuition was actually paid for by scholarships, because I was so nerdy, because I was so good at academics. I was able to secure a scholarship. So I actually didn't have to pay for dorming, for room and board, for the meal plan, and for tuition. But somehow I still graduated with $20,000 of debt, because I just didn't have any self-control. I didn't have anybody to talk to me about, like, why do you want to buy all these clothes and shoes? Why do you feel so much pressure to look like, you have money when you actually really don't? And, kind of thinking about the psychology side of money, I never thought about it. I never had anybody to talk to me about it. So that's pretty much where I was when I started my first job. I was a teacher teaching third and fourth grade. I had all that debt, and I didn't tell anybody. So my parents didn't realize, I would just tell them that I worked a bunch of hours and that I paid for all the stuff myself. And I kind of kept that a secret. So I had this big, embarrassing, kind of shameful secret where it was like, everybody thinks I'm debt free and I have a college degree, but I actually have $20,000 that I owe, and I have to figure out how the heck I'm going to get this paid for. And so I guess fast forwarding to a few years after college, I was at a point where I just had enough. Like, I was like, this doesn't make sense. I'm by the time I pay my rent, I pay my bills, I get my, transportation paid for, and, buy lunch and pay my cell phone bill, all the things, right? There's only but so much money left. And it wasn't enough to pay off the credit cards. And so I was like, the math just doesn't make sense. And I was making probably about $40,000 a year as a first year teacher. So it was really frustrating. And one day I was in the pharmacy, and I saw on the rack, like by the magazines and all that kind of section where you go to pay, there was a book called Women in Money by Susie Orman. And it's definitely one of the classic, like, Susie Orman's one of like those classic traditional, like, personal finance personas or personalities. But I had never heard of her. And I just picked up the book and started reading it. By the time I got to like page 5, I just was like, I'm gonna buy this book. Like, because I read 5 pages standing up, right, like just right in the store. I was reading. I was like, I have to buy this book. So it was $9. And to this day, I always tell people, like, that was the best $9 that I ever spent. It was an investment that I made, because that book, like, really paid dividends. Like, I was able to learn about investing, saving, budgeting, all these things that nobody ever talked to me about before. And so I just followed her plan in the book. She has a 9-month plan. So I did that 2 times back to back, and it took me 18 months, but I paid off all the credit card debt. I fixed up my credit score, and I saved up an emergency fund after that. And I have never looked back. I feel like I've been like a totally different person when it comes to my finances ever since reading that book.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's we don't know what we don't know, and then when we know it, it's just like, oh, let's do this.
Yes.
And why didn't anybody tell me about this?
That's
right.
right.
So I want to rewind a little bit, because you were talking about the money you were spending in college, and I did some digging, and I realized, or I heard you talk about how you were trying to keep up, and you were trying to, you felt this pressure to, wear the Uggs and to buy the things. And so, knowing what you know now about it really doesn't matter now, right? Like, the shoes you wore back then don't really matter, but it mattered a lot at the time. How would you tell young people to deal with the peer pressure of keeping up, of looking cool? Because it's a real thing, whether we want to admit it or not. It's a struggle.
It's so real. I gotta say, I wish that I had, even though I maybe not majored in psychology, but like taken maybe some classes in psychology when I was in college, because this one woman that I spoke to recently, she was telling me that she's always had this mentality like that, consumerism and, spending to have all the brand names and showing off the cool stuff. That in her mind, she always knew that that was something that was created by the companies, because of marketing campaigns are designed in a way where they use tactics to try to get us to believe that having those products and having those brands is what's cool. And so she learned that in a class about like the marketing, marketing tactics that are used. And that was because she majored in psychology. And so that was one of the classes that she took. And I'm like, you know what? If I could go back and be 18, I would totally take one of those classes where you understand what tactics are being used by advertisers and marketing agencies and companies that are trying to build their brand. Because if you can understand how they're messing with your psychology, then when you go to to the mall or wherever it's shopping, go on Amazon, and you're like, oh, I want to get this. You can actually have a split second where you pause and tell yourself, oh, wait, it says only 3 left in stock. And that's a lie. Like, there's not only 3 left. They're trying to get me to buy this right now, even though I don't have the money. So you can at least take a minute to reflect on what you know about the marketing tactics being used and how they're trying to convince you to look a certain way, act a certain way, dress a certain way. All those things are essentially leading to you spending money that comes out of your pocket and goes into their company. So they actually make the profit and you are left without the money and with all these things that literally don't add much, value to your life. So I would say that if you're young, like, yeah, of course, feeling cool, being part of the cool crew, like it matters so much to you at that point in your life, because of course, like, in your teens and early 20s, like being seen as cool is really important, because social status matters in your brain at that time, at that point in your life. But as you get older, you're going to realize how much that doesn't matter. And if you can learn about psychology and marketing early on, you're going to have such a head start in understanding, like, they're trying to play you with all these tactics online. And if you know that you can like defend yourself against that, you're going to be so much better off financially than every generation before you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say the house always wins. And
Mm-hmm.
so you got to understand how the house operates and the tricks that they pull. Speaking of which, I watched one of your videos where you talked about dark patterns.
Yeah.
And I know this kind of stuff exists because I did disable my Facebook account recently. And then I re-enabled it, and they've been sending me all these notifications about things that they never did before. And it's like, remember how important we are in your life. Remember all the things that we do for you. And
Wow.
I'm like, dude, stop, please. Like, you're just making me angry. But with that being said, they are the house in a lot of ways.
That's
Can you
right.
talk about dark patterns, what they are, and how we can spot them and avoid them?
Absolutely. So I actually love talking about dark patterns because I never knew about them until I watched. Who was it that I watched? I think it was Hassan Minhaj who had a video about dark patterns, and he, it's interesting because he works at Netflix and he admitted that Netflix has a lot of dark patterns on their website,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Or his show was on Netflix at least. But yeah, I think that the key with dark patterns is understanding what it is, and essentially what they do is companies will use online tricks and tactics and strategies to purposefully make you do something that you may not even want to really do, but you end up doing it anyway because of the way that the site is designed, the way that the user interfaces looks when you log in, or the way that certain things are laid out on the screen. So a few examples, because I know it's kind of like that's kind of hard to understand. Like some examples recently that I've seen, when you download an app and something pops up, there's no way to like close it out because the X button to close doesn't show up right away. It takes some time to pop up. And so you're clicking around and you end up clicking on it and it takes you to go buy the thing. And you're like, wait, what? No, I'm not trying to buy this. I was trying to exit out, but you didn't have the button there. And sometimes there's even super simple ones, which aren't as like, I guess, super negative, but they'll ask you a couple questions, right? And then every time that you answer, the questions are like in green, right? So it's like, oh, do you want to download? Yes, it's in green. Okay, great. Like enter your name here, and the space to enter your name is in green. Then you go to the next slide, it's like everything's in green. And then eventually it gets to a point where it's like, do you want to go ahead and buy the Pro for $199 a month? And it's yes, in green. And so they even simple use of color can get you to do something that you're not necessarily aware, like you weren't really thinking too much about it. It just kind of click, 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 and boom, now all of a sudden you signed up for the subscription service. And you're like, what the, I didn't, like, I wasn't trying to do that.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's some that are way more, I don't know what word to use, maybe like, naughty. Like they really do mean to be more purpose. So some of them, for example, one of the famous ones is Amazon. If you ever try to cancel your Amazon account, it's nearly impossible to do because you can't find where you deactivate your account. At Facebook, it's pretty obvious where you go, you click, 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 boom, deactivate your account. Amazon, it's almost like there's no way you would be able to figure it out yourself unless you Googled the steps for how to cancel your Amazon account, because the buttons are hidden. You have to click something and then select from a drop-down menu, and you wouldn't even know what to select. It's impossible to do it. Why? Because if you close your Amazon account, then Amazon is less likely to get money, and they don't want that. So they're going to make it pretty much close to impossible for you to not give them money. And those are dark patterns, and they exist all the time on apps, on the phone, on the laptop, on iPads, anywhere where you're interfacing with technology and apps and websites, and especially company advertisements, you're going to see dark patterns. And I think the key to being aware of them a little bit more is to just spend some time trying to learn what are the main ones. What are the main dark patterns that are being used on the web right now? One of them that I actually recently learned about, and I think is hilarious, is called confirm shaming, which is when you are given two options, and the one that you probably don't want to click because it means you have to pay is worded in a way that makes you not want to click it, so that you are less likely to not do that. So one quick example, right? You go online, you buy an iPhone, right? And then it's like the next screen is like, okay, you're going to go ahead and pay for your iPhone, but don't you want to make sure you get a case to protect your iPhone? And then and then the buttons, yes, I'm so smart. I want to buy this case and protect my iPhone. No, I'm a moron, and I'm not going to get a case. So my iPhone falls and cracks. It won't be protected. So now you have these two choices to choose. Yes, I'm so smart and I want to get a case, or no, I'm a moron. And like, why would you want to choose no, I'm a moron? So people are like about to click it and they're like, wait, I don't want to click that, I'm a moron. So they're likely to spend more even if they didn't plan on it because of that. And that one it seems so silly, but it really can be effective when you're clicking and you don't want to click something that makes you feel bad. So learn about them, learn the names, and then when you are online and you notice one, you can point out there's confirm shaming. They're so slick. They think they got me. And you can at least have the language to kind of talk about what they're doing, and then also have the, the knowledge to help you defend yourself against these dark patterns.
Yeah. Yeah. And literally everything that's out there is designed to get our money, right?
That's right. That's right. That's what they want. They want your money.
So, I mean, literally those, they're looking behind every object that's out there. So that's crazy. Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, as we try to beat this whole thing called consumerism, as we try to, become financially independent and, hopefully retire early and have a good life, what would you tell people on how to have fun without money? Because that's the number one thing that I run into when I'm just like, oh yeah, here's this movement that I don't subscribe to every single thing that they talk about, but at the same time, this stuff is important. Retirement is important. Yep. Planning for the future is important. And people are like, well, I don't want to not enjoy my life. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to think about the future, and there's got to be some middle ground. So what would you tell people with what you do? What hacks do you have? Whatever you want to share.
Yeah, this is such a good question, I got to say, because not enough people talk openly about the fact that, well, we talk about how hard it is, but we don't talk about what are some things we can do that don't cost money. And now I'll start with when I was in college, right? One of the things that I would always do is go out and party with my friends, right? So first things first, transportation. You're either going to chip into the person who's driving everybody so they can pay for gas. You're going to either pay for an Uber or Lyft. Back then we didn't have Uber and Lyft, but taxis. Or you're going to end up, spending money some way, somehow to get there, right? Then when you get there, there's usually a cover charge. If it's a party that has, ticket sales or cover, you're going to pay for that. Then when you're inside, oh, you can't be in a party and not have a drink in your hand. Oh, so now you're buying drinks. So when you sit down and add up, okay, all the costs associated with that night out, and also incorporate the cost that you're going to spend on trying to jazz yourself up and get ready to go. So you're probably going to buy a new dress, buy a new pair of shoes because it's a new party. And you don't want to wear the same outfit you wore last party because I thought I was J-Lo and I couldn't wear the same outfit twice. I don't know what was going on in my mind. So, all this stuff adds up, and then it's just one night out. And so you're like, oh my goodness, like this is ridiculous. You keep doing that every Friday, every Saturday, that's how you quickly end up in a bunch of debt. So what I started doing was, and I didn't do this as much as I should have, obviously, or I could have, but one of the things that works for me is I had an old Guitar Hero set that a Rock Band set that nobody was even using that thing. It was just in my parents' basement collecting dust. And I asked my brothers, I'm like, do you guys even use this? They're like, no. So I packed it up and took it with me over the holiday break back to campus. And I set it up in one of the dorm lounges. And I would literally invite people, bring cookies, bring snacks, bring whatever you got. We would go to the cafeteria and just grab bananas, grab juice, whatever. And just literally hang out in the lounge late at night. Everybody's playing Rock Band. We're either doing karaoke, hanging out, talking, taking pictures. And it's just look, we can create an environment where there's something fun for us to do, where we can hang out and we don't have to pay to do it. And so that was one. It's creating environments that have some fun kind of attraction so people can get together and socialize that doesn't require you to pay. And then another thing is which I never did, but now I thought of it recently and told my niece, because she just went off to college. I was like, what would have been so fun is if you go to CVS and pay $3 to get a bunch of water balloons and fill them up and literally invite everybody from your dorm and have a massive water balloon fight on the green. Of course, afterwards you're gonna have to clean up, but it's still so much fun. And it's $3 to buy a pack of water balloons. You don't have to spend $30-$40 all the time. And so I just think try to think outside the box, because the goal, what you're trying to do is socialize. You're trying to go and be social and hang out and kill the time, but in a way where you're hanging out with everybody else. So if you can still do that without spending money, or at least not spending a bunch of money, it takes a little bit of creative thinking and forethought and planning, but you could really have a blast with little to no money. And then I think now, in my adult life, actually, I'm gonna check my phone because I was just texting my friend this the other day, where I was saying that when we hang out with people as adults now, we usually go drinking and eating. We'll go out for drinks, we'll go to happy hour, go to a bar, or we'll go to a restaurant, sit down and have dinner or lunch. And why is it that when we get together with our friends, that's all we do? It's sad, right? And so I started telling her that we should, my idea for her was that we should create an app, but we should have some kind of tool that people can use to create a list of social activities that they value. And then when people hit you up hey, I want to spend time with you, I haven't seen you in a while, you provide them with this menu of options for how you would like to spend time with people. And for me, I started this podcast with the story about how my obsession with the 305 Fitness, which is the cardio dance workout that my friend Sadie started. I love that workout. So now when I want to hang out with people, I'll tell them, listen, I have some free credits that I racked up from working at this gym. If you want to come hang out with me for an hour, it's such a fun time. Just bring yoga clothes and we're going to jump up and down, get a good sweat in. I'm getting a workout in. Neither one of us has to pay. And we have a great time after just chatting and, traveling back home, right? Cooking a meal at home together is way cheaper than going out to a restaurant, because you have to tip the service, you have to, pay to get there. So, for me lately, I've been doing a lot of juicing, meditating, reading a book together, all these kind of things that you're growing together, you're spending quality time together, you're socializing, but you don't have to make it expensive, or sometimes you don't even have to pay for it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And And kind of piggybacking off of that, one of the things that the pandemic has done is it has forced us to kind of reimagine life and
That's
activities.
right.
And so, I like to go dancing too. Being vaccinated, I'm not going into a building full of people who are breathing
Right.
mostly without
And I
masks.
and I don't
Uh,
know who they are. I don't know if they're vaccinated. I don't know. I don't know them.
Exactly. And so, recently I was like, you know what? The weather's cooling down. We should have outdoor dance parties because, first off, we don't have to pay a cover
Yeah.
unless I start
Yeah.
charging, right? Which I
Smart.
might. No, but, just get a Bluetooth speaker, turn up some music, just get some folks out and it's a party. And that's exactly what you wanted in the first place.
Exactly.
And, yeah, so yeah, I like all your suggestions. I'm gonna probably steal a couple of them. So
Love it. Do it. Take them all. And the goal
yeah,
is really for people to be able to enjoy time together, but not have to, break the bank to do it. And at the end of the day, I think whenever we think about hanging out and being social, or at least in, my youth was like in my teens and early 20s, I'm like, oh, okay, so what are we going to do? Are we going to go bowling? Are we going to go to the movies? Are we going to
mm-hmm,
go to the mall
mm-hmm,
and go shopping? Are we going to go eat? Like, I had no creativity. I could
mm-hmm.
not think of one thing that didn't cost money. And that's so
Sure,
sad because it just means that I have been socialized. I've been so brainwashed, right? By society's dark patterns to
mm-hmm.
think that these are the ways that you can socialize. These are the things you do with friends. Well, you can make your own list of things that you want to do with your friends. That doesn't have to be expensive.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And honestly, a frisbee or a ball in the park is,
So much fun. All you
yeah,
need. That's all you
yeah,
need.
indeed, absolutely. Speaking of talking to or hanging out with friends and spending time with your loved ones, you found this journey of becoming financially literate and you learned a lot more than your parents, a lot more than your older family members. As someone becomes financially literate, how do they go about talking to them, those older people as a younger relative? Because it's hard, right?
Mhm. So hard. I think for me, I got lucky because um, in 2011, I graduated. I was a hot mess up until like about 2014. And then in 2014, I read that book and I started getting my life together. And in 2015, I was completely debt free and I launched my YouTube channel where I started talking about how I improved my credit, how I paid off my credit card debt, how I started saving, how I budgeted, basic things, investing. Eventually, I started posting about investing too. And the channel kind of like it grew quickly and I did not expect that. Like I thought it was going to be, my friends, maybe I'll send these videos to my family just to help people who ask me questions about credit. I'll just be like, oh, watch this video. But
Mm-hmm.
eventually thousands of people started watching and thousands of people started subscribing. And so once I hit, 10, 20, 30,000 subscribers, my family started to ask me questions because they were
Mm-hmm.
like, they saw that my audience saw me as an expert and somebody who could help them. So then they kind of thought like, well, I'm lucky. She's my own sister. She's my own cousin. She's my own daughter. Like, let me ask her for help. And friends and community member, everybody. People would text me if they had my cell phone number, they would felt comfortable to text me and ask me, hey, I have a question about credit. And I think that's is a beautiful thing because disseminating information and establishing yourself as knowledgeable in that content area is beneficial in a lot of ways. Not only does it help my community and my family and they can watch those videos, but it helps people that I've literally never met, like in the other side of the world. I've had people email me and say like, hey, I watched your videos on Miss Be Helpful and I'm in India. In a couple weeks, I'm heading to the U.S. What should I do? Should I get a secured credit card first, or should I get a credit builder account? What do you think for somebody coming from India? I'm like, you're all the way in India, and you're asking me for financial advice? Like I'm just this poor girl from Brooklyn. Like it's crazy to think the impact that you can have. But the fact that it bled kind of over to my family was like a blessing in disguise because I didn't have to force, I didn't have to preach, I didn't have to do conversion therapy, I didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
really do any kind of manipulation. they softly and slowly kind of came to me, and a lot of them kind of looked to me for guidance about their investment accounts or their retirement plans or 529s for their babies. Like I get questions about all kinds of things now. And so I love that, but I definitely do acknowledge that most people don't get lucky like that when you do kind of figure out your own financial situation, now you feel you have to reach back and really like help your family, and sometimes they don't want the help, or they're not ready to hear your message and to hear to make change in their life. So at the end of the day, you just have to remember not to force or push anybody. They're going to come to it when they're ready. And of course, you can always send resources. Check out this video. Oh my God, I love following this girl on YouTube. This is my favorite Instagrammer who talks about investing. Like, just watch some of their videos. That's fine. But, sharing is different from pushing. And for me, I think just make that distinction and just really strive to be helpful. Like, I mean, my whole brand is Miss Be Helpful, but because I don't want to push anybody or scare anybody away. I want to help. And I know that help is something that goes two ways. I want to give it, but you also have to want to receive it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's nothing but the truth. Yeah. And, credit.
Credit.
Here's the question I've gotten. Well, I gotta build my credit, so I gotta get a credit card. And yes, we do need credit. I mean, I couldn't have bought, a car or house or whatever it is without credit. So what advice do you have for people to build credit responsibly? And that's the key word, right? How do you build credit responsibly?
There's a couple things that I would do differently if I could go back in time. And I guess probably the easiest way to say this is if I had a kid, if I ever had a baby, I know exactly what I would do to make that child have excellent credit by the time they turn 18. So first things first, I have credit cards that I've had open since I was 18. I'm now 32. So, we're talking about over 10 years of credit history on those credit cards. Now, I'm very lucky because, I'm fortunate that I was always the kind of person who, even if it was just a minimum payment, I always sent a payment. So I never missed payments or skipped payments or forgot to pay because, the academic kind of nerdy side of me was always like, I got to get this in by the due date. I got to submit this on time. So even if the statement said $25, well, then I would send $25 by the due date, right? I wasn't going above and beyond, but I was always doing the bare minimum. And so that has allowed me to have 100% excellent credit history, which is the biggest piece of your credit score, right? 35% of your grade comes from you having a squeaky clean credit history record of always making on-time payments. So if I have a kid, I can add them as an authorized user to my oldest credit card or to whichever credit card has the best squeaky clean credit history on it. And age of credit is important too. So if it's been open for a really long time, I can add them to my credit card as an authorized user, and they automatically get on their credit report all the years that I've had that card open for as their age of credit. All the credit history that I have of on-time payments, they get reported to their credit now. So essentially they're piggybacking off of your squeaky clean record so that they can have a squeaky clean record too. Now, when they go to apply for a credit card of their own, they're not going to get a super high interest rate. They're not going to get the worst offers. They're not going to get denied because they already piggybacked off of you and established some decent credit. Now, disclaimer, I could never have done this because my parents don't even have bank accounts. They don't have credit card. They're a first wave of immigrants and I'm first gen. So they came and didn't really acclimate to systems here. They were cash only and, depended a lot on government assistance. So they didn't necessarily have credit cards or anything to do that. But for me moving forward, I can now create a generational cycle of good credit, excellent credit habits, also, of course, in other aspects of money. And so that's one thing. I think authorized user status is so powerful and we don't talk about this enough. We don't use that enough. I have coworkers who've told me like my 2-year-old is an authorized user on my credit card, has an 800 credit score already because my 2-year-old has had a credit card for 20 years. How is it possible that a 2-year-old has a credit card for 20 years? Because they added them as an authorized user, right? So it's a kind of trick that you can use to hack credit. And then the second thing I would say is a credit builder account. So if you don't have anybody in your family who can do that for you, you can at least establish a credit builder account on your own without a cosigner or anybody adding you as an authorized user or anything like that. You would essentially just create this account and there's a certain number on the account. And maybe it's $1,000 or maybe it's $500. And so every month you're going to send a small payment to the company where you established the credit builder account, and they're going to pretend that you owed them that money all along and that you're paying them back when you never really borrowed the money. But hey, this is again another credit hack. So every month they report your payments, and it looks like you borrowed money and you're paying it back, because that's essentially what credit is. Credit is, hey, I borrowed money from you and I'm paying it back to you. And that establishes a reputation of a trustworthy person who can borrow and pay back. So a lot of people complain, like I've heard people say like, oh, the credit system it's not fair, and it's racist, it's sexist, it's classist, it's all these things. And I'm not gonna lie, the credit system definitely is flawed. But one thing I will say is in the fact that like rent payments or daycare or things like that, those kind of payments, they don't get reported to your credit because you're not borrowing that money from the daycare. You're not borrowing that money from your landlord. You just owe it because you chose to sign a contract to live there or to go to that school, right? So there's a difference between credit where you borrowed money from a bank or an institution and you have to pay them back the money that they gave you. But if you never received money and you just owe payments, that technically doesn't necessarily go to your credit report. So we have to really understand, what are the things that I can do to borrow money that can allow me to pay it back and establish good credit? Or if I don't want to borrow money because I'm afraid that I will spend it all and not pay it back because I can't trust myself yet, I don't have self-control yet, then maybe a credit builder account is the next best step, because you never actually borrow any money. You just start making payments, they report them, and then when you reach that full amount in full, they take a 2 or 3% fee, of course, for their services, and the rest goes back to you in a lump sum payment. So now you can just put that money in your savings account and you establish credit at the same time.
I didn't even know this existed. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's called a credit builder account.
That is amazing. Absolutely awesome. Okay, so that's a great way to set yourself up for your financial future. And speaking of which, what advice do you have besides, let's say someone can't somehow find a job? What advice would you have for young people about making money where they're not at the mercy of, there's not enough jobs in the neighborhood, because especially in low income areas, all the jobs are taken by the adults, and so that's a real thing that I've seen over and over. And so what would you tell a young person to go out and get theirs?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting because nowadays you don't actually have to go out and get anything. You can stay in and get stuff, right? Like you can get in, you can stay in and make money. So I got super lucky, right? In 2015, I started a YouTube channel. I had no idea that it was going to go, to where it's been. Not that I'm like a multimillionaire or a millionaire off YouTube, like a lot of people are, or a small percentage of those who are on YouTube are, but there are plenty. But I make like $1,000 a month in passive income from YouTube. And now that didn't start right away. It started happening maybe, a year and a half into me creating content. So for the whole first year and a half, I was making videos and not getting paid a penny, not getting any money. But I kept doing it because I really enjoyed it. And, it was something I could do for free, and I was just really like passionate about creating this content to help people, right? And to tell my story and post these tutorials. But it later led to income because of the Google AdSense program. People click on ads and, Google gives you some of that money. YouTube is, of course, a subsidiary of Google. So at the end of the day, I feel like I tapped into the online creator economy without even knowing. And I wish that I did it. Well, I don't really care how I did it. I wish I had just done it sooner, and I wish I knew about it. I did it not knowing, but if I had known what I was doing, I could have been more intentional. I could have been more data driven. Like a lot of people will just post videos every day, but they don't look at their data. Like YouTube gives you analytics that are insane. Look at those analytics. Like, what are your most popular videos? Which ones have the most watch time? Like, what are people clicking and watching the longest? Like, that's a topic you should post more videos about. And a lot of people don't have that data-driven, mindset. I'm not gonna lie, I never had that mindset until I went to college. When I got to college, and when I started working as a teacher, everything is all about data. You have to, you need to back up what your opinion is. You have to, use evidence constantly, And so I think that if we operate that way and take advantage of the creator economy online, and you don't even have to be creating content. Like I think there's so many teens that are like, I'm introverted. I just want to do my own thing. I don't, maybe I'm a gamer, or I don't like to, be on in front of the camera or whatever. But just doing some research about all the possibilities that are out there for people to make money online. For example, the other day, my brother, who just turned 18, he just graduated high school, and he's working at a store in the neighborhood, which is like I don't know what people call it. Like there's like Dollar Tree, Dollar General, all these kind of like low cost items or household items that you can get for like a low cost, right? So he started working there, and I messaged him and I said, listen, the holidays are coming up right around the corner, and you work at a store that sells reduced price like toys and all kinds of things. Why don't you start every paycheck, take a little piece of your paycheck and buy, like research like which toys are the most popular. I mean, you work there, you can see which toys are going the fastest, right? Like buy one or two of each of the most popular toys and hold it. And when the holidays come, everyone's going to be looking for quick gifts online. You can go on eBay or any kind of site where you can sell it for, whatever amount that's much more than what you paid for it, but still a pretty good deal. And then you keep the profit. And that's a couple months of time, only a little bit of effort on your part. And he was like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Like, that's so smart, And so again, like, I don't think he needs to, and in his case, like, obviously he already works at that store, but if he didn't work there, he could probably still do something similar. And I think that the goal is to just wrap your mind around the internet. Like we don't maximize our use of the internet. Most people use the internet to scroll through crap, to look at like celebrity drama, to listen to music, to watch memes online, look at memes online, DM our friends. But the internet is there's so much untapped there that you have to tap. Like you can learn anything for free on the internet. And if you recognize the power that you have with your iPhone and your iPad, or with whatever phone you have or device you have, being connected to the internet gives you the power to learn anything. So start with like top 10 ways to make money online free, top 15 whatever, top 25 ways college kids can make money without leaving their dorm room, right? Like start reading that kind of stuff, start watching those kinds of videos, and write the stuff down that for you is actually attainable, things that you could actually do realistically. And that is so empowering, because you do one or two of those things, you make $300 and you're like, whoa, like that was a quick success. And now you're motivated to see what else you have the potential to do. Sure. So I would definitely say start inside. You don't even have to, of course, jobs right now are, it's tough because it's COVID. It's kind of a weird job market. Like there's plenty of jobs, but there aren't really. And so I would say just start on your device, because that way you can maximize your time, since you never have to leave your house and commute to work to begin with.
Yeah. And also you're using your device for the opposite of, instead of it just taking up your time and, essentially time is money. Now you're using it to make money. So
exactly. Yep.
One thing I would like to add to what you said is, if eBay still does this, and I think they do, every time you purchase an item, and as long as you're a good customer, you get a review from the sellers, right? And so you can build up your score by buying little things and getting positive reviews from the sellers. And then people can't really tell if you were selling things or buying things. And then that's a little hack that I've noticed myself. So
yeah, that's super smart. And again, I know it can be intimidating, because like for some people, like, oh, I've never even used eBay. Like, okay, so what? There was a day where you never used Instagram. There was a day where you never knew how TikTok worked, right? It's like you can't even barely remember when you first downloaded TikTok, right? Now it's just second nature to you, right? So same thing with eBay. You learn these things. Like if it's online, it's so easy and accessible. It just spend the time. Before you know it, it's going to be just like how you use TikTok. You're just going to know how to do it, and you're not going to be scared of it anymore. So just get over that initial fear or that initial uncertainty by just diving in. And then if you don't like it, if like you try it and you genuinely like just don't enjoy it, try something different. Don't stick around too long on something that you don't enjoy, because the reality is you're just going to get burnt out. You have to actually like it. I'll go back to my example where I was putting YouTube videos up. I wasn't making any money for a year and a half, but I kept doing it. I kept every month a new video, every week a new video, because I actually enjoyed it. So that has to be part of the formula if you want to sustain it long enough to actually see the returns on investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Don't burn yourself out. Wow, this is such good information. I where were you when I was in high school? No, I'm kidding.
Where was the brain that I have today when I needed it when I was 18?
Indeed. Facts. Well, you're giving that brain to other people, so there it is. Boom. Um, we are coming up on time, and I just want to be mindful of that. But what are some important life principles that you have lived by that have helped you to become successful? And I know you've talked about being studious. You talked about a lot of really good positive things that you've done. What is something that you haven't mentioned that you feel like, people just need to know this is going to
Yeah.
help you get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely curiosity. You have to want to learn everything. Like, and it's crazy because like sometimes I get so sad because I'm like, I don't. There's no way that I have enough time in my lifetime to learn everything that I want to learn. Like, I want to speak so many languages. I want to go to so many places. I want to read
Hmm.
books. I want to
Hmm.
read poems. I want to read mysteries. I want to read magazines. I want to like I but I can't, like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do all those things in the little short, maybe if I'm lucky, 100 years of my lifetime, right?
Hmm.
Which is
Hmm.
crazy because most people think 100 years is a really long time. But when you think about all the knowledge in the world, 100 years is not enough time to learn it all. And so you're not going to, right? So just accept that, but focus on being curious or like tapping into what you're curious about, because
Hmm.
your curiosity is going to drive you to your passion. And so I was really curious about money and how to fix my money situation. Boom, that led to me figuring it out, reading more about it, diving into personal finance and creating a brand around, my knowledge of it. So I think curiosity is so important. And then the second thing I would say for me, which has been like kind of like a guiding, I don't know, life philosophy, is like I used to tell my third graders, don't do anything in private that you wouldn't do in public.
Hmm.
So if you like, essentially, like, pretend that there's a camera recording you at all times, and if you operate that way, you're always going to have integrity. You're always going to, kind of quote unquote do the right thing, because unfortunately we care more about what other people find out about us and think about us than we do about what we think of ourselves. And the most successful people, they find a way to crack that, and they care mostly about what they themselves think of themselves, not what other people think of them. So if
Hmm.
we could, find a way to be like that, like in my mind, I always just try to operate in a way where I'm like, if there was a camera recording me right now, what would I do? What would I say? How would I act?
Hmm.
And then just let that be who you are. Like, just,
Hmm.
do the right thing all the time, just because doing the right thing is what's right, not because you're being watched.
Yeah.
And so if you operate that way, I think you find joy in life because you're a good person. Good is the new cool, honestly. Like, I feel like when you become an adult, you realize like being a good person is so much cooler than being a cool person.
Yeah. Yeah. Facts. Yeah. And people want to hang out with you when you're a good
Yes.
person,
Yes.
and everybody wants to be hung out with. I mean, that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why we do the things that we do, right?
Yeah. And I want to hang out with myself more. Like, it's
Yes.
crazy because I'm such an extroverted person and I'm such a social butterfly. I've
Hmm.
never enjoyed alone time, quote unquote alone time. But in my late 20s and now in my early 30s, I'm like, bro, if I get a Sunday to myself, I am so excited. I'm like, I love this because now I can be with me and
Hmm.
spend time
Hmm.
with me. And I love me. Like, I love me and I want to make me better. So I can read whatever I want. I can, rest. I can work out. I can do whatever I want that makes me feel better. And I think, when I was younger, I didn't have that. I was like, what am I going to do? Who am I going to hang out with? I don't want to be
Hmm.
alone. And I had to do that internal work to get to the point where I just love myself so much that being alone actually brings me joy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Good stuff. And that's a great note to end on right there. That's good stuff. So what I like to do, Janelli, at the end of my podcast interviews is I like to do a little freestyle rapping.
Ooh,
Um,
love it.
so we'll incorporate some things that happened in our awesome interview, and mostly you're doing most of the heavy lifting, let's be honest. And yeah, here we go. All right, can you hear that?
Yep.
All right. So, something you could tell me. I'm talking about Yanely. She dropping a bunch of knowledge. Help kids go to college. Help kids understand how to get their money right. And that's what I say. I come straight through. She constantly slays a whole bunch of debt. Come with a microphone. She got respect for herself because she likes to hang out with herself. And that's what you got. Internal wealth. A whole bunch of things that you gotta bring. I spit a freestyle, talk about the dark patterns, leave bad burns, so you gotta understand what they doing. You gotta see all the tricks, understand the script. That's how we flip rhymes all the time. I'm talking about a whole bunch of nerdiness, but that's how you do. Come straight through, go to school, learn and be curious, be quite furious about the things that you're passionate about. Constantly shout and give a bunch of love, a whole bunch of hugs, and understand you don't gotta spend money to have that fun. And that's what I say when I come through and run. Yo, I'm talking about guitar, heroes when I'm strumming. Yo, it's just something that we have in the dorm, feeling quite warm with my people now. And that's how I keep it down, talking about a whole bunch of stacks that we got. You gotta understand and never forget it. I'm talking about credit, how you gonna build it, and that's what I say. Come through with the realness, 20 freaking years when you're two. That's how we do, that's how we rule. I'm talking about things they don't teach you in school, but they got to. And that's what I drop true, spit off the top. And that's how I go, that's what I said with a freestyle flow.
Hey, oh my God, I love that so much. This was so fun. I don't think I've ever had a podcast interview where there was a freestyle at the end.
Yeah. I tried, I just try to put a smile on, your face, my face.
That was awesome.
We do all of that, and that's what we're, that's a success.
I love
Speaking
it.
of success, I feel like this interview was an absolute success, and thank you so much for taking the time.
No, that was awesome.
And we didn't even, you know what? Let's touch on real quick next gen personal finance. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, right.
And your work with them and what they have going on, and then I want to hear all your social handles as well.
Cool. Yeah, so it's funny because connecting back to the YouTube thing, right? Like once I started the YouTube thing, it didn't just lead to like helping my family and my friends in the community and teaching people, but it established my reputation online as a trustworthy professional in the financial education space. Even though I never took a financial planning class or took a business class, like I never was educated around finances, but I taught myself and then established myself as a professional in that space. So, or as at least as a knowledgeable person in the space. So that actually led to me getting a job in personal finance education, which is nuts. So after I finished teaching, I worked at a few nonprofits, and then I took some time off, and I was like, I don't really know what I want to do, but I know that I want to keep working with financial literacy and personal finance. I don't really want to be like a creator who's constantly like burnt out, making videos all the time. And I like working with people, and I care about schools. So I was taking some time off, and then all of a sudden I got an email, and it was like, there's this organization, it's a nonprofit called Next Gen Personal Finance. They're based in California, and they're trying to make sure that every single state guarantees every high school student a full semester of personal finance before they graduate. And I was like, what? Oh, that's amazing. That's literally what I wish happened. And they asked me to be on a podcast just like this. Mm-hmm. So I had a podcast interview with the founder of the organization. And a couple weeks after the podcast interview, he emailed me and said, hey, listen, I don't know if you're in the job market. I don't know what you're doing in terms of work, if you're even interested, but I would like to create a role at this organization for you as the director of educational outreach, because you have that connection to education. You have your master's in education and teaching, but you also have a personal connection to financial literacy, personal finance, and you know so much about it. And with your background, you can really, help teachers and help people like understand the importance of this being in school. And so I kind of thought about it for a little bit. I started researching the organization, looking at their work. We partnered together to do a few workshops. And then after that, I was like, I think this is like a great place for me to take my next step. So I've been there for 3 years now. And in my work, I do three main things. One is teacher training. So I literally, would be on a call on Zoom. It used to be in person before COVID, but now it's all virtual with hundreds of teachers. And I'm just teaching them about personal finance so that they have the knowledge to then go and teach the lessons to their students. So that's really cool. The second thing is I get to create curriculum. So I make videos like that dark patterns videos that you saw. And those videos are actually used in the curriculum. So students get to watch me teach concepts that are, teen friendly about money. And then the last piece is advocacy. So I get to work with legislators. Actually, today was a celebration in Rhode Island. The treasurer of Rhode Island, Treasurer Magaziner, just signed, or the governor actually signed a bill into law that the treasurer wrote and we supported, which was to make sure that all the students in the state of Rhode Island get a personal finance class. So now that's actually happening in the state of Rhode Island. So just working with legislators to change the laws so that we can get to a point where nobody's going to graduate high school and be like, how come we never learned about taxes, but we learned about the Pythagorean theorem? We're never going to be able to say that again if we get this right for the next generation.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Yeah. And the videos are bite-sized, but they're packed with so much good stuff.
Yes.
I was like, wow. And your videos are awesome too. And, how can people find you on the YouTube, on the Instagram, and anything else you want to share?
Yeah. So for my personal or for my Miss Be Helpful stuff, that's MISSBE Helpful, Miss Be Helpful on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. I have like other socials like Twitter, and I just don't use those as much.
Yeah.
I'm heavy on YouTube and Instagram mostly. And then if you want to keep track of the work that I do with the education nonprofit NGPF, you can follow them at NextGenPF on social, or you can just check out the website ngpf.org. Though the short videos that you were talking about, they're bite-sized and jam-packed. Those are called FinCap Friday, and that's through NGPF. So you can just type in FinCap Friday to YouTube if you want to watch those. There's like over 100 2-minute videos about really cool topics like GameStop and the stock market and Bitcoin and understanding insurance, like all kinds of things that are related to money that, usually they're kind of boring, but we try to make them a little more fun for students.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll make sure to tag all of that in the show notes. So
Yay, perfect.
people will find you. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was a great conversation. I love what you're doing out there in the world. And just keep, changing, helping laws get made and stuff. That's good stuff.
Changing lives, changing laws.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. You have a good day. Okay.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. So that's the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot from it. And I hope you put what you learned into practice. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the follow button so you don't miss future episodes. And also, if you would please rate and review this podcast, that would be super helpful in getting the word out about it. All right, so that's all I got for now. Until next time, peace.